Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back once again to Marotta Media. I know what a lot of you were thinking. You know the whole spiel. It's been a while, been really busy, haven't had time to make a full YouTube video. But there have been a lot of movies that I've seen recently that I had a lot of thoughts on, and I just had to get them all out there. And one of those movies is one that I watched just a few weeks ago that I have been thinking about ever since, and it seems like I'm in the minority on it. And I think it's bound to be one of the, if not the most polarizing film of 2025. And that movie is Hurry Up Tomorrow. Hurry Up Tomorrow is a movie where we follow famous pop star Abel, who you might know better as The Weeknd. And this movie shares the same name as his album that came out earlier this year, although the movie was filmed before the album came out. And in this movie, we follow Abel as The Weeknd, a fictionalized version of himself, as he goes on this odyssey of self-discovery with the help of a stranger. That is truly the best way I could put the plot synopsis of this movie. Now, I was actually really looking forward to Hurry Up Tomorrow because I am a gigantic fan of this movie's director, Trey Edward Shults. Shults has directed 3 feature-length films thus far. His debut was Krisha, which I think is an underrated gem. His follow-up was It Comes at Night, a movie that I really liked the first time I watched it, but I have not seen it since, so I'm due for a rewatch. And his previous and most recent film was Waves from 2019, which was one of my favorite movies of that year, and I just rewatched it last month, and I still think that movie is excellent. So I was really looking forward to Hurry Up Tomorrow. I wanted to see what more Trey Edward Shults had up his sleeve. And it seems like my excitement wasn't as warranted, because this movie is being critically panned. In fact, so much so, at the time I am recording this video, it currently holds a 14% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I know Rotten Tomatoes is not the be-all, end-all. In fact, I agree with Rotten Tomatoes most of the time. And typically, when I see a movie that has that bad of an approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, I would normally agree with it and just jump on the hate train and say, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, it deserves all the hate, and don't waste your time watching it. But I am going to do something that I cannot recall that I've ever done on YouTube before. I am going to defend a movie that seems like it's being universally hated, because I truly do not think that Hurry Up Tomorrow was that bad, and in fact, I kinda liked this movie. It's certainly not a great movie, but this is not even close to the worst movie that I've watched this year, and I've seen a lot of bad movies this year. From a filmmaking standpoint, I truly believe that Hurry Up Tomorrow is made beautifully. Trey Edward Shults has a very distinct style, and that style is ever present within this movie as well. Aspect ratio changes galore that change depending on the character's mood. The cinematography is just absolutely jaw-dropping. I think even if you didn't like this movie, you have to admit that the cinematography is fantastic. Shults really knows how to shoot a movie. Whether or not you think that that movie is good is a different story, but all of his movies have been shot so well. And the color correction is also equally as fantastic. All of his movies are so vibrant in color. So visually, I think this movie is phenomenal, and like I said, you might not think that this movie is very good, and that's okay, but you have to admit that the visuals are outstanding. But to my surprise, Hurry Up Tomorrow actually utilizes a lot of elements from Shults' first 2 movies, Krisha and It Comes at Night. There are a lot of horror elements that are incorporated within Hurry Up Tomorrow, which is something that I truly did not see coming because it didn't seem like it would fit for a movie like this. The film incorporates a lot of surrealism, and surrealism is something that is very hit or miss for me. Sometimes I like it, but there are other times where I find it just very strange and just weird for the sake of being weird, and it totally loses me. But I found the surreal parts of Hurry Up Tomorrow to be very easy to follow. And to my surprise, a few of these moments actually sent a chill up my spine because I just found them to be very eerie. There's one scene in particular where Abel finds himself on an empty street. There is absolutely nobody walking around. There are no cars driving up and down the road. And for whatever reason, this actually kind of scared me. I think it's because I've had dreams that are a little bit like that, where I'm just completely alone somewhere and I have no idea where everybody went, and I don't like that feeling. It's very off-putting to me. But at the heart of Hurry Up Tomorrow is a very personal story for Abel himself. This movie is almost like a deconstruction of the Weeknd moniker that he has put on all of these years. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Hurry Up Tomorrow is a super deep movie and it has so much meaning, because it is very easy to follow, almost to a fault. But I actually vibed a lot with what this movie was going for, especially when it came to the symbolism. Because aside from Abel himself, there are two other main characters in this movie. Lee, who is Abel's manager, played by Barry Keoghan, and Anima, or Anima, played by Jenna Ortega, who is like a Weeknd super fan. And I realized as the movie went on that both of these characters kind of represent the angel and the devil on Abel's shoulders. Because his manager, Lee, is just this man who very much does not care about Abel's well-being. He constantly pushes him to go on stage, even though he might not be ready, and he continues to push him until he reaches a breaking point. It's almost like the evil side of Abel's brain telling him that he needs to continue to go on stage and put on a happy face for his fans, even though his heart might not be into it. But Anima, on the other hand, kind of brings out the best in Abel. She tries to show him the way and show him who he truly is, and helps him deconstruct the words behind his songs. But this moment in particular does lead to a rather cheesy moment, but I'll get to that later on. But what I got out of this was a very personal story about isolation and humans' over-reliance on codependency. As I said, this movie is not super deep or hard to understand at all, and I really don't think it's trying to be. I think that this is just a story that they are trying to tell in the only way that they knew how to tell it. But now we will get to my complaints with this movie, because believe me, there are a lot of them. This movie is incredibly flawed, even though I did like it. But first, I will say one of my smaller complaints is the acting of Abel Tesfaye himself. Obviously, we have seen Abel try to act before, like in that HBO show The Idol with Lily Rose Depp. I didn't watch that show, but we all saw those clips that went viral, and yeah, his acting definitely could have used some work.
Let me catch you looking at her again. Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm not.
Let me catch you looking at her again.
I'm sorry,
Let
I'm
me
not
fucking
sure.
catch you looking at her again. I'll fucking drag you down Rodeo while your fucking ass just fucking stomp you. I'll fucking curb stomp you.
I'm sorry.
I'll fucking curb stomp you.
And I'm happy to report that his acting in this movie is very much improved, but it's still not great. There is one scene in particular that I have seen go viral on TikTok where he is just yelling at the character of Anima, and yeah, in that moment as I was watching, even I said, like, yikes, his line delivery is really bad. And even though I don't think his performance was terrible, it was still noticeable in parts, but it did not take me out of the movie. And another complaint that I've heard that I absolutely agree with is that this movie just feels like a very prolonged music video. Do I think this movie could have been summed up in, say, a 10 to 15 minute music video? 100%. I don't necessarily understand why this needed to be stretched out to a feature-length film, but whatever. And earlier I mentioned a particular scene where Anima tries to help Abel find the true meaning of the words in his songs. There is literally a scene that feels like it was ripped straight out of Misery, where they're just playing the Weeknd's music. One of the songs that they play is Blinding Lights, and I know this might be cliche, but I absolutely love that song. And we just sit there listening to the entire song while Jenna Ortega tells the audience what the song is about. It came off almost like Abel himself was patting himself on the back, just saying, look how great of an artist I am. Listen to the words that I am putting out there and how deep they are. And I feel like even die-hard fans of his have to admit that this scene was a little bit too on the nose. And speaking of those die-hard fans, I truly think that this movie is more so catered towards them. And not that I'm saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I have said in previous reviews, especially when I've reviewed video game movie adaptations, it is possible to appeal to die-hard fans as well as people who might not be fans of the subject matter. I think if you just focus on trying to please the fans of the source material, then you're just going to alienate those who aren't. Because this is a movie that I think if you are not a fan of The Weeknd, you will absolutely hate it. But if you do love his music, then this is right up your alley, and I think you will love every second of it. But I wish that this movie was not catered towards his fans specifically, because there are even a lot of moments that are based on actual events, and I had no idea. Like one moment where Abel loses his voice on stage in the movie, and I guess this was based off something that actually happened, and I did not know that. And I've said in previous reviews, I really hate when movies make you do homework in order to understand them better. These movies just kind of expect you to know all of these things going in, and you might not know that. Use this as an opportunity to educate the audience who might not be familiar with these things, rather than just catering towards those who know it going in. And even though my complaints with this movie are very big, I truly didn't hate it. But that being said, I do absolutely understand why someone would hate this movie. As I mentioned, if you're not a die-hard fan of The Weeknd, I mean, I'm not, but I actually like this movie. But if you aren't, then chances are you're going to think this is the worst movie that you've ever seen in your life. But I do think that this movie has the ability to appeal to you, even if you are just a recreational listener like I am. But I do think I am a little bit biased because, as I said, I'm just a big fan of Trey Edward Shults and his style, and I'm looking forward to seeing whatever he does next. I just really hope that it doesn't take another 6 years before he releases a movie. But all in all, this is a movie that people will definitely not like, obviously, as you saw from its 14% approval rating. But I truly do not think that this movie is that bad. It actually feels kind of good to be on this side of the fence. Listen to me defending a movie that most people hate, and I'm here to tell you that it really isn't that terrible. And honestly, I can see this movie becoming a cult classic down the road. Overall, I'd give Hurry Up Tomorrow a 6 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Hurry Up Tomorrow. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. If you're a fan of Abel's, did you love this movie or did you not like it? If you guys like this review, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous videos, I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.